Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmelk, joined by Paul Dottino. The phone number for you is 201-939-4513. Part of my voice, I've managed to dodge a cold since school started with my two young kids in the house. Well, my 2-year-old got me. He got my wife about 3 days ago, and now
You know it was him.
Oh, yeah, he came home with it. It's absolutely him.
Okay.
100%. So, I'm doing okay, but as you can see, the voice is a little bit weaker, so I will do my best. Luckily, Paul is here to pick up the slack. He's always willing to talk more. So, we're in good shape
Actually,
with that.
I'm a little bit hoarse.
You're
Not
okay.
sick,
Yes.
just a little hoarse.
Being outside, my wife and I took my daughter around the city on Saturday, too, and we walked outside for a couple hours. So that might have something to do with this as well. And yelling angrily at the Knicks when they lost to the Pistons on Saturday night.
Oh.
Might have been just not a great New York sports weekend, Paul.
The alums were good, though.
They were. The alums were good. There was some funny ones in there, and I kind of feel bad for them. Everyone got cheers. Even, like, Iman Shumpert got cheers.
Yes.
Do you know who did not get cheers?
Eddie Curry.
No, he didn't get booed, though. There was
He
one
didn't
guy
get
that had a
booed, but it
smattering.
didn't sound like on the TV he got cheers either.
There was one guy that had a smattering of booze.
Okay. Oh, don't tell me it was Charles Smith. That's not right.
I know, poor Charles
That's
Smith.
not
I felt-
right.
It was a smattering.
He was fouled 3 times on the play.
It wasn't a bad booing, but there was like a low rumbling.
Really?
Yeah, there was. I'm not gonna lie.
That's shameful.
Dunked the ball, but I didn't boo him. But
Okay.
yes, there was a smattering. And then I guess if you're a Yankee fan, it was a rough sports weekend. But Met fans are probably happy. Two
Yeah.
bad Cy Taxon on today. It's a shame.
Yeah, really.
I got to deal with him tomorrow, though, so good luck with that. And obviously the Giants with a very tough loss to the New Orleans Saints, 14-11. The Giants found a new way to lose a football game. They're trying to click off on their little to-do list all the ways they can lose football games, and they're going through them one by one. This game, they decide to try blocked field goal. Now, that only would have sent the game into overtime, but I think you feel pretty good about how the game in overtime would have went because Jake Haener was at starting quarterback for the Saints because Derek Carr had gotten hurt. But they never had the chance because Brian Brzee makes a really athletic play, jumps over Jake Kubas, and the long snapper does a good job of not getting a piece of either one of them on the way, gets a hand on the field goal. I didn't realize the field goal, I think, still had the distance to go in.
It did.
It just
I was on the
curved
goal
left
line.
a little bit. So
I saw it.
it actually still got there. It just went a little bit left because of the deflection. Got it right in the thumb. And the Giants end up losing in a heartbreaking fashion, 14-11.
Yeah, Shepard, the defensive lineman for the Saints, made sure that the 2 Giants linemen were face down against the ground.
Well, Kubas went low to begin with.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And it was between Kubas and Kreider where Brzee wound up going, and Shepard made sure that, he got a little push on Kubas just to make sure that he didn't get higher. And then Brzee made the play. And it really is the same play the Giants used in Seattle.
Yeah, very similar.
And Isaiah Simmons blocked a kick to save a game for the Giants. This time they got burned by virtually a mirror image kind of play. So, I mean, it's legal. It's a really good, crafty play. And you just have to be able to physically make sure that you don't get pushed down too far to where the guy can't get over you. Because remember,
the minute Brzee hits him, it's
that's
leverage
it.
and it's a penalty.
All he's got to do is touch him, and now it's a flag on the other team. But it didn't work out that way. But John, that's not the only way the Giants lost this game. They had a punt return for a touchdown called back.
Which, by the way, was the right call.
And they had a field goal called back.
That I did not like. Even on the coach's tape when I rewatched it, Paul,
I know.
Really did not like that call.
Well,
and you know me, I don't complain about officials, guys. I don't blame refs for anything. It is what it is. You got to play through it, and that's not why the Giants lost the game. The Giants had many opportunities to win despite that call.
Yes.
But Kubas was pulled down more than he body slammed anybody, in my opinion.
You absolutely could see it that way, John. And then the other problem, and you can't really tell from the video, is the timing of the play. It looks like it may have been just before the ball got through the uprights, but you can't really see it definitively.
It's hard to see.
Very hard to see. Close enough to where Man, that's a very tough call to make. That's all I'm going to say. A very, very tough call to make.
It is. Graham Gano seemed to think it was through. We talked to him in the post-game show, but it was tough to see. And I'm going to try to bring up this Kubas. I'm going to show you the angle, Paul, that I thought was pretty telling on this particular play. If I can get this thing to work, I'll do it in a second.
Yeah.
But I think just, and then overall, again, after a 13 penalty game last week, 12 penalties for 112 yards, and going back through it, I didn't realize, I had forgotten about it since we've talked about the game so much on the post-game show. But that delay a game on the next to last Giants drive, which put them into a 1st and 15, they eventually, that's the series that Drew Lock throws the interception on the 4th and long.
Yes.
Like, if you don't get in the 1st and 15 there, you might be able to drive the length of the field there and tie or win the game, depending on how that drive goes. It's like little self-inflicted wounds like that. You would have passed an interference penalty. Now, that did end up costing them at the end of the first half. But there were too many little things in this game where the Giants beat themselves again, which has been a theme so far this year.
Something that I have not done, and I'm going to make it one of my chores before the Baltimore game. Yeah, no, I'm serious, John.
I don't even know what you're going to say, but I know I'm going to find it amusing.
Well, I created the scoring zone stat, which I'm still I'm very much married to that. By the way, yesterday,
I thought that's where you were going. I got a stat for you, by the way.
The scoring zone stat, they were 1 field goal, 1 touchdown, 1 empty possession.
Correct. So 2 for 3.
Okay, 2 for 3, which still leaves them at 65% on the season.
And just 1 for 2 in the red zone.
Correct.
That was at 50%.
Now, the number that I'm actually looking forward to calculating, or I shouldn't say I'm looking forward to it because it's going to make me cry, is how many offensive yards the Giants have lost on their own penalties.
Oh, when I went back and I looked at the bye week, I looked at every red zone drive, and there were a number of penalties in there that, remember, there were 3 that took touchdowns off the board on their own.
Yes. And I haven't calculated that total yet. I'm going to make it my business to do it.
So I reached out to our buddies over at Stats. So the Giants are now at 69% scoring rate inside the red zone. So they're scoring on fewer than 70% of their red zone possessions. Now,
well, that jives with my number, 65, inside the 30.
Same conversation, all right? So I want some context. I'm like, well, how does that compare to other teams? Well, it's the worst in the league this year, first and foremost, okay? Worst in the league this year. For the Giants, only one other Giant team in franchise history over the last 30-plus seasons, since 1991, I believe, is when they started having this stat getting tracked.
Okay.
Only one Giant team has been worse than the 2024 team. Which team do you think it was?
Only one?
Yep.
And since 91 this is?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
And I only ask you this because I think you're going to be able to get it.
Well, is it the Mike Glenn and Jake Fromm team?
It is not.
It is not?
It is not.
John, that team was really challenged.
Well, what was the other year since 1991 that was one of the worst Giant teams you've ever seen?
Since 91. So that goes back to pre-Dan Reed. That goes back to Ray Handley, 91. So
since 91. So I'm not sure if it's included. Yeah, I guess it would include 91 then.
Yeah, because Handley was 91, 92.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't one of the Dan Reeves teams, I wouldn't believe. You know what? John, I'll be honest. I can't think of another one that was so bad that it would have been worse than the Glenn and Fromm year.
2003.
Really?
Yep. 66% scoring rate in the red zone. That's the only year that's worse. And then, believe it or not, I don't know what was going on back then. This is before I started covering the team.
2003 was Jim's last year, Fossil's last year.
That was the brutal last Jim Fossil
It was
year,
rough.
Which is why I thought you'd be able to guess it. Because what did they win? 4 games that year?
Yeah, it was rough, but I didn't think they were that barren offensively. I mean, to be worse than the Fromm Glennon to half a season?
31 scores in 47 possessions.
Man.
So just under 2/3.
Okay, now that may be the worst red zone number, but it may not be the lowest point total during that time.
No, it might not. That's true. And just for context, The next lowest is 76%, so a full almost 7% more than that.
Wow.
That was Coughlin's first year in 2004, believe it or not. Then 76.3% in 2002. Fossil's next to last year. So I don't know what was going on in the red zone in those last 2 Fossil years, but man, like those 3 years, 02 to 04, all 3 of those years are top 4 worst in the last 30 years.
Well, 04 they had trouble because Kurt Warner was getting sacked a lot, and he also had fumbleitis when he was getting hit. And that was a bit of a problem for him in 04, and that's why Tom made the switch.
And then, believe it or not, last year was the other year. 76, 77%. So that's Giant-wise. I'm going to give you, I also got league-wide numbers. So this is going back to 2005. So 20 seasons worth of data on this one, okay? The Giants, take a guess what number they are in terms of worst scoring percentage inside the 20-yard line.
8?
6. There are only 5 teams worse than them in the last 20 years. The 2009 Rams, I believe that's the Steve Spagnuolo Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
With Sam
yeah,
Bradford.
well, they were a mess.
Yeah, Panthers in 2010.
Okay.
Raiders in 2006. Off the top of my head, I'm guessing that's the Jamarcus Russell Raiders.
It would have to be.
Would have to be, right? The winless 2017 Cleveland Browns, who also, by the way, hold the record as the only team to go a full season without winning the turnover battle in any individual game.
Are they?
Yep. So the Giants are in good company in the same categories as that team in
Wow.
2 important categories.
Wow.
And then the 2006 Packers, believe it or not, just 69%. The Giants then are 6 behind those 5 teams. So
And
not good company.
Stats perform.
Yeah.
Good.
That is StatSync. So they have
right.
in the last 20 years the 6th worst scoring rate inside the 20-yard line.
Well, and, when we think about the 2022 playoff season, what's the first thing we talk about? Is that they were outstanding in the red zone.
Yep.
And, that leads to points, and points lead to victories. So I guess that shouldn't surprise us, should it?
Yep, absolutely. And right now in 1-score games, Paul, they won the Browns game. Otherwise, the Giants have lost to the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Commanders, the Panthers, the Cowboys, the Saints. So 1-7 in 1-score games, and I'm going to count the Bengal game in there because that was a 1-score game for much of the fourth quarter.
Sure.
So 1-8.
Sure.
1-8 in those games. The other games, the Giants 9-point win against Seattle was kind of a close game. You want to count that one, fine. That's 2-8. And then you had the blowout losses, obviously, to the Eagles, the Bucks, and the Vikings. So that accounts for all your games this year. So Giants, again, because of the late lock interception, they lose the turnover battle, or they are even in the turnover battle again.
Even.
They failed to win it for the 13th straight game. That is a Giants franchise record. And since 1950, Paul, only 4 teams have had a longer streak than that in a single season.
If I may, the one takeaway the Giants had yesterday, Carr threw up a 50-50 ball. And we were talking about this just the other day,
by the way,
John.
tip your cap. The reason that pass, I think, got underthrown is because Brian Burns was about to lay out Derek Carr.
Yes.
So I know Hawkins gets the pick in the box score. The reason that pass is underthrown because Carr's been great throwing the deep ball this year. He's been fantastic.
Very good.
The reason that's underthrown is because Brian Burns knocked Derek Carr over as soon as he threw the ball.
But the point that I was going to make
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No. John and I were talking about this all week, how quarterbacks never seem to throw a ball up for grabs against the Giants secondary. It just seems like these guys are on target all the time. Well, Carr got pressured, made a rare mistake of just putting it up for grabs. He does not throw a lot of picks. That's not his MO.
Nope.
And what I liked about it was that Trey Hawkins went and got the ball. It was a jump ball, 50-50 ball, and he attacked the ball and said, it's mine, and went and got it. And that's what I liked about it, because this kid now, in only his second season, and remember, he was thrust in early as a rookie because they needed him early. They didn't have any depth. He went to the deep end of the pool, and the poor kid played a couple of games. He got exposed. He wasn't really ready for it, and then he got relegated to the bench. Well, he's been a good kid, a good teammate. He's done everything they've asked him to do. He listens to the coaches, and now he got another chance to actually get a healthy amount of reps. And you know what? He did okay yesterday, John.
Yeah, he had a couple of mistakes in coverage. He had the pass interference, which luckily did not hurt the team at the end of the first half. And he let a pass in front of him on a deep out. Mm-hmm. But I thought he was really good in the run game. He was very physical. He tackled well.
He did come up and made plays.
Unfortunately, we'll see if he's going to be able to play next week because he got hurt too.
He was banged up after the game when I had a chance to talk to him for television.
Well, he never came back out back into the lineup after he left the game. Who did he tackle on the sideline?
Was it Miller or Williams?
I think it was Kendre Miller.
I thought it was Miller too.
It might have been. I think it was Miller.
But the point that I want to make is that here was a kid who's got some length and he's got some height, and the jump ball is thrown, and he did what you're supposed to do. He didn't try to break up the pass. He didn't wait for it to come down. He went up and made sure that he attacked the ball and didn't let the receiver get it.
Yeah, and I'll give Adoree Jackson credit. He made a great pass breakup in the first quarter, too. He only got one hand up there to reach it, but he really went up there and knocked the ball away. Good play out of him. And, I think Hawkins, Paul, kind of represents what the theme of this game was. By the time you got to the end of this game, of the 22 normal starters the Giants would have out there, only 10 guys were left. 10. That's it.
Amazing.
And your entire offensive line was either out of the game or out of position. Greg Van Roten was the only one left standing, and he was playing center. You had Kubas at right guard, Stinney at left guard, with Zudu at left tackle, and Neal at right tackle. And I went back. It was a little bit worse than I thought it was at first watch. I'm sure when you went back, you thought it was a little bit better than you thought probably at first watch, I would imagine.
Go ahead.
I thought they did okay. I thought of the group, early Schmitz had a loss. He didn't recognize a twist on one play. I thought Azudu was getting pushed back into the backfield a lot. I thought Evan Neal actually did a pretty good job. Stinney got beat on one play. Otherwise, I thought he did okay.
The inside rush.
Correct. Otherwise, he was okay besides that one play. And Neal got beat on the inside rush. I ended up playing the first quarter. After that, I thought he was pretty good in the game. Now, they weren't perfect. They weren't great. They weren't dominant. But the offense was able to function with the way they played up front.
I agree with you. They were better than I thought originally yesterday. I had Evan Neal down for 6 plays, 6 snaps that I thought he would like to have back. That's it. Out of...
Were they all in the pass game?
5 were the pass game. 1 was in the run game.
I thought he actually did pretty good in the running game again. And Paul, he did. And he stayed on his feet. Last week when he was on the ground a lot, he was not on the ground in this game really at all.
Different level of competition.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And
it's funny, I asked Carmen Brasillo that last Friday. He goes, the competition shouldn't matter with that sort of thing. And I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, but some guys are all pros for a reason.
Correct.
So I just want to say, I think that was a good rebound game and a step forward for Evan Neal. I'm with you.
And I'm looking at the defensive line. Elijah Garcia came out with his hair on fire. He made some plays in the first quarter. He kind of petered out after that a little bit, but he made some good plays early.
The last drive, and Chapman had that nice stop.
And I thought Chapman was pretty good throughout, to be honest.
Did okay.
With you. And I know they gave him an extension. He was a first-round pick. He kind of tossed Cesar Ruiz around in that game throughout. He did a really nice job when he got that matchup. So I was pretty happy with Chapman. I thought Brian Burns played another good game. He was getting pretty consistent pressure. He was pretty good against the run. Kayvon, he had that one sack. It was kind of an unblocked deal on a play-action pass, but still. But I thought Burns was good. Musa was fine. Some of the run stuff, maybe a little bit late here or there, but I thought he was okay. He had a couple good coverage snaps in there, too. So I think you did have... And just the level of effort and grittiness you saw from the young guys over the course of that game, I liked what I saw.
I'll just give you a few quick items on the defense, right?
Yeah.
So they held the Saints to 5 of 15 on third down, which is a good number. You like that. You like the fact that they held them under 100 yards rushing, and Kamara couldn't even get 50.
No,
you like that.
Yeah. Run defense was the best we've seen since the end of September.
Really good yesterday, to be honest with you. Really good.
Yeah.
Okay? And then... in the final 4 minutes of the game, the Giants' defense, and I know the play selection by the Saints, you could argue, maybe they didn't do the best job of time management, but in the final 4 minutes and 11 seconds.
You don't like that play-action rollout by Jake Haener on second down?
Wow. Hey, but you know what?
I'll take it.
The play is the play.
Yep.
Okay? But in the final 4 minutes and 11 seconds, the Giants' defense got the ball back twice.
They did.
They used all 3 of their timeouts.
Yeah, look, everyone in the...
And they got the ball back
everyone
twice.
In that building thought after that Drew Lock interception in the fourth quarter, thought the game was over.
And the defense said, no, we're going to get the ball back for you.
They did.
So, I felt bad for Brian Burns when the question, I believe it was Paul Schwartz of the Post, said to him, you give up 14 points, you got to feel like that's good enough to win the game. And Brian Burns just looked at him and he goes... yeah, well, but we did some things that weren't good enough to win.
Yeah,
and that's what happened.
And that's true, too.
Yeah, exactly. Because they had a busted coverage on the touchdown to Johnson.
Yeah. And you could see Adoree Jackson like trying to wave somebody over, and nobody came over.
Muasau is pointing left and right. McFadden decides to run to the other side of the defense. Carr sees the confusion and snaps the ball.
He absolutely saw it, yes.
Because Derek Carr knows what he's doing. He sees that. Now, what I said on to somebody earlier this morning was that in that spot, you're down 7-3. The other team's at your 11-yard line, 1st and 10, and you've got confusion. I would have rather have seen the defense call timeout right there because that's a critical play. I know you're going to lose the timeout, and they wound up needing all 3 at the end of the game.
Yeah, if you don't call
I get that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I get that.
That was a first down play?
It was 1st and 10 at the 11-yard line, and your guys are pointing around. They're not sure what's going on, and look what happens.
Yeah.
You have a busted coverage, and you leave a guy all alone. I would love to have seen somebody call timeout. And again, now you only have 2 at the end of the game. So, will that come back and haunt you in terms of time management? Sure, it will.
And look, you just shouldn't have that confusion in that spot. Now, granted, you got a bunch of guys out there that haven't played together, which is the problem.
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Because we know that Bobby Okereke usually makes those calls. He's not available, so you got McFadden out there and Muasau.
Pinnock was pointing to it, and then the pre-snap, they're all trying to figure it out.
And how many times really have Muasau and McFadden been in the game together?
No. I thought Mike McFadden, by the way, played a really good game.
11 tackles, 5 for a loss.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been, if not his best ever game, his second best game maybe as a Giant.
He was all over the place.
He was right up there.
He played well. Trying to think of anybody else. That Daniel Bellinger, I thought, took advantage of his opportunity.
He did.
He had a couple nice catches in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that jumped out at me. I don't think I have much else.
I got one more
for you. Yeah, what do you got?
Malik Neighbors in the 4th quarter.
I'm happy you brought that up.
Had a 22-yard catch, a 23-yard catch. Both of them set up Giants' potential scores, all right? And he had the 2-point conversion off the ricochet. So
yes.
He made 3 hugely important receptions for the Giants.
Now, I thought,
actually gave him a chance.
I thought he looked more explosive in this game than he has in a while. Now, surprisingly, it's the week that he has the injury that pops up late on his hip pointer or groin.
Did you get to the final few plays yet?
I did, yes.
Did you see him fall down?
Oh, yeah, of course.
He was in the right slot.
And that could have been a big play,
It could have been a huge play.
He could have caught that and went for 6.
And you see him, he falls down on his own.
It looks like
he grabs his hip.
It looked like he was going to try to fake outside and come back in, and he fell down. I didn't see him grab his hip afterwards, did he?
He reaches for his hip, and immediately
the
the Saints defensive back points over to the Giants bench and waves him like the guy's hurt.
That I didn't notice.
Oh, yeah.
I did. Obviously, I watched the play when he fell.
So he must have screamed.
Because he was going to be one-on-one with the safety on that. Paul, heading into this game, Malik Neighbors only had 7 broken tackles all year, according to Pro Football Focus on catches. He had 3 in this game alone. So I thought he ran by people. He had contested catches.
Well, the last drive, didn't he have 3 on that last?
I thought he could have
last catch.
I thought he could have came. Yeah, I think maybe it was 2 on that one.
They may have given him only credit for 2, but he got him down at the field goal range.
Correct, and then he could have made that other catch on the right sideline where if he didn't put his other arm down to brace himself, but I'm sure between the hip and the concussion earlier in the year, he doesn't want to hit his head, and he had tried to hold it with one hand and brace himself. He could have just kept 2 hands on the ball there. I think he would have held on to that one.
I don't know. You know I'm tough on drops.
No, that's not a drop. I wouldn't call that a drop.
Okay, it's not a drop. I gave the Giants 4 drops yesterday, by the way.
It would have been a really nice play.
Would have been a great play. Now, I was probably about 15 yards downfield from that, right on the sideline. The defensive back, and one of the angles probably shows it on the video.
Oh, he gets his hand on the ball.
He got his hand right in there.
No, he doesn't know.
It was a heck of a defensive play.
Defense made a good play. Absolutely.
Terrific play.
No question.
But it would have been a miraculous catch. Not that mattered because the Giants got into that field position anyway.
Yeah, but you could have had a couple times to take shots at the end zone.
You could have. As it was, they still had 2 shots at the end zone.
They did.
As it was.
And it was a really good play on that little skinny post to Wando Robinson.
It was.
It was a good throw.
The ball was going to be there.
Spot.
It was going to be there.
The guy made a really nice play going over the back to knock that away.
It was going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Giants had 4 plays of 20-plus yards, which is great. Actually, and then they had a 5th play of 18 yards. The problem is that all 5 of those plays came in the final 5 minutes of the game. So before the 5:12 mark in the 4th quarter, the Giants' longest play from scrimmage was 17 yards, which is probably why you could explain they only had those 3 points for for much of the game. But the offense did wake up. What do you think of Drew Lock's play?
He's going to have mixed reviews again after this game. There were times where he just didn't seem to have the bullseye. You know, he was a little bit inaccurate when he needed to be. There were some other times where I think he was. I don't know if he thought he saw guys covered and then looked off to another guy, or maybe he was just trying to fake somebody out and then go to somewhere else. There were times that he looked to the second and third receivers, and I didn't know if he had to, is what I'm trying to say.
I thought there were plays where there were receivers to get the ball to, and he wasn't necessarily getting it to them. He
extended some plays that he didn't have to.
How
about that?
He ran out of some clean pockets, things like that. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Now, is that because he still doesn't have the feel because he hasn't had much time? Maybe. Is it because he doesn't have a comfort level, certainly with these offensive linemen, because the offensive line had to be rebuilt again yesterday? Maybe. I don't know, but I thought it was mixed. Because at the same time, he did make some really nice throws.
Well, he said a post-game, right? He goes, in the first half, I have to be better. And that's absolutely true.
Without a doubt.
What was he, 6 of 17 in the first half of this game or something like that?
In the first half, the Giants had 7 possessions, I believe, for 86 total yards and only 4 first downs.
6 of 19 for 52 yards in the first half.
Yeah,
obviously, that's not good enough.
It was really rough.
I mean, in the first half, the Giants had 4 3-and-outs. They did not have a drive go longer than 26 yards.
Okay, how about this?
That's the problem.
Second quarter, Giants have consecutive drives with the ball, I believe, at their 49, the Saints 49, their own 48, and their own 37. And what they get on those 4 golden field position possessions.
Paul, it's worse than that.
A field goal.
It's worse than that, Paul.
That's it.
First drive started at the Saints' 48-yard line. Their own 43, their own 32, their own 49, the Saints 48, their own 49, their own 37.
Well, I was just talking about the second quarter.
Well, I wanted to get the first quarter ones.
First quarter one's fine.
Because that was good field position, too.
I agree.
So you have those 7 drives and 1 field goal. They did not have a possession go longer than 26 yards in the first half. You can't have that.
No.
Win games.
No. So
but to his credit,
he came back. He bounced back.
The guy's got guts.
He is tough.
He is
tough.
And at the end,
13
when
quarterback
he needs to
hits.
run around and make plays and do what he's got to do, he did it. Second straight week, he kind of did that late. Now, can I see that a little bit more in the first 2 quarters, please?
I know. 2 drops on the first possession.
Didn't help.
Didn't help him. Didn't help him.
No, but I mean,
guys, you got to help him.
He had his own problems. So
he did.
Yes.
He did.
And Brian Daboll, by the way, according to the media, said Locke will start against the Ravens if he's physically able to go. He's apparently getting tests as we speak. You said it's his foot, right, that it was messed up after the game?
He had said that he had injured his foot, but that he thought he was going to be okay.
So I'm sure they did x-rays after the game, like they usually do. Just because those are negative doesn't mean that there's not something else that you don't pick up in x-rays that could be wrong. So they'll do the
Never
other test
can
they
tell.
need to do,
Or if there's late swelling,
and
too.
we'll see. Yeah, it could be any of those things.
You
like
know?
Tommy DeVito on the Monday, they thought he was fine. Then the next day, he comes in, his right arm is a balloon, and he couldn't play quarterback against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So
exactly.
that is the news. And Art Stapleton also reporting that John Runyon, week to week with his ankle, may be longer, according to Daboll. And this is Art saying, and not Brian Daboll, that it sounds like he could be maybe a IR candidate and could be theoretically done for the year. Nothing here on John Michael Schmitz. It looks like he had an ankle late in that game. So we'll see what his status is this week,
I
too.
thought it was the neck.
Oh, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe he was the neck. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
He was the neck. You're right.
Dan Salamone tweeted about it.
Oh, what does he have?
John Michael Schmitz, who left with a neck injury, is sore but looks okay, says Daboll.
Sore but looks okay. All right, there we go. Thank you.
I got to RT Mr. Salamone. He likes when I do that. I got to go find. Let me see what he's got. He might have something else
I don't
here.
think technically it's an RT anymore, by the way. It's not Twitter anymore. It's an RX.
It's an RX now.
We
have.
him.
You know what else Dan says? Dan Salamone, by the way, staff writer upstairs here at the Giants, says Tyler Nubin is dealing with an ankle, according to the Daboll presser.
Yeah, he hurt himself earlier in the game and then went back in.
He had gotten banged up the previous week.
Yeah, I think everyone's fighting through some stuff right now, to be honest with you. So,
and there were guys fighting through it, and I want to just make that point again. It's very easy when things are going poor to kind of get a little bit, let's say, less than aggressive. You had guys yesterday playing right to the final whistle.
Look, they played hard, and now I don't want to go too nuts about the performance by the defense because the Saints' offense is not great. They don't have any wide receivers.
No doubt.
Really.
No doubt.
But still, for the guys that were out there and the guys that were banged up, a really good, hardworking, blue-collar performance. Stopped the run for the first time in what seems like 7 or 8 weeks. They did a nice job, so I think you got to tip your cap. And it's good to see that the team was very engaged, playing hard, and doing their best out there. Obviously, the results is what matters, and that in the end, the loss is all that matters. But it was at least a well-played game by the defense.
We mentioned the run defense, but I want to say this. Alvin Kamara, on 22 touches, rushes and receptions, had a combined total of only 79 yards.
Pretty good.
He has made a lot of people in this league look pretty bad. He's a good player. So
yeah, I thought Bowen did a great job. They really committed to stopping the run in this game.
They did.
They had a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage. By the way, so did the Saints. The Saints were daring the Giants to throw the ball for much of this game. They had 8 guys in the box, a ton. Well, they had the extra guys. So if the Giants were in 11, they had 7 guys in the box. Just to put the extra man in there to slow down the Giants. And I thought Tyrone Tracy made the best out of what was not a lot of space.
No,
I thought he did fine. But
didn't get a lot of touches either.
They were,
because
he finished, 16 rushes?
Was it 16?
I think 14,
Didn't seem
15?
that much. Was it really? 16 rushes,
16,
for 45. And then 5 catches also. But, Locke threw the ball 49 times.
Well,
We've told you about this for years. When the Giants are throwing the ball over 40 times, in fact, if it's over 35, chances are that's not a good sign.
No, well, when you go down big and you got to make up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, you got to throw it, and that's where that big deficit comes into play. All right. Paul, you got anything else for me before we
Let's
take
go.
a break or no? All right, here we go. 201-939-4513. Let's take your calls. 201-939-4513. John Soto Podcast, Rapid Reaction, Toomer and Madeline Pearson is up there. Go check it out. Exclusively on podcast platforms. Go find it. You can also find the Giants Podcast, John Soto Podcast on the Giants mobile app or giants.com/podcast. Check it out. Marco in Connecticut. I haven't heard from Marco in a long while. Marco, what's up, buddy?
Hey guys.
Hi.
Yeah, I've been listening probably every show this year. It's been a tough year, but I've been following along as usual.
Appreciate that.
Guys, I got a couple thoughts and a couple questions. But my thoughts are, overall, this has been a really, really tough year, as you know. And I'm just going to blanket statement. I want to move on from Dave's. I don't want to move on from Shane. Really, and I mean that. I desperately think that we need consistency, and maybe it's going to take, there's got to be some real big bumps before we get to some positive that we could see, and I thought we were seeing. That's the biggest challenge, is that there's been glimpses, and now I'm also like, hey, someone much smarter than me has some really tough decisions to look through. And that's the problem. Like, I want what the Steelers have built. I want that consistency over time. But here's a couple of troubled areas that bother me. For one, these teams that have been consistent over the years, you typically don't see them letting good talent get out of the building. You don't see them having these revenge games, right? And it seems like for us, gosh, like, it's just like it can't hurt any more than it does with seeing, and I get it, and I know the reasons why they were done when they were done, but Leo and Saquon and Xavier and Love, and they all happen at different times and for different reasons and resources. It all makes sense, but it still doesn't look good at all. And
Marco, if I can put you on hold for just a second, just bear with me, please. I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
Two of the most consistent teams in terms of operation in the last 20 years were the Steelers and the Patriots, right? You'd agree with me?
Sure.
And they had the most success of most teams in the last 20 years, for the most part?
Sure.
You'd agree with that too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
their mantra with both of those teams, for the most part, is get rid of a guy 1 year too early as opposed to a year too late.
The Patriots specifically.
Patriots are very heavy with that, and the Steelers to some degree. have never been held over a barrel with free agents.
Trying to remember.
They've let a bunch of starters go over the years.
I'm trying to remember who the really good starters are that the Steelers have let walk. The Patriots, the list is really long.
Well,
that's
their
an easy
offensive line, their whole offensive line that they had built, they overturned those guys quickly. The Jets wound up with like 3 of them, and they wound up playing a couple of years after that.
You got someone, Pearson? Le'Veon
Bell,
yeah,
sure.
well.
Antonio Brown. I mean, there's again some
Brown was for other
some
reasons, but yeah.
extracurricular situations going on there. But the point being that I appreciate what you've said.
Who was the pass rusher they had? The straight line guy. He ended up tearing his ACL. I'm trying to remember his name.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about.
yeah. At one point, they had the 2 guys. Shazier got hurt.
Yeah, Shazier.
And then they had the other guy. I know who you mean.
Yeah,
I know who you mean.
I'll find it.
But the point being that Mark is that Marco, the 2 teams that really do preach stability, they've done some overturning of people. So I don't necessarily want to go there.
Paul, my point, you're right, especially with the 2 teams you named, but when did you see the Patriots or the Steelers letting a potential offensive or defensive player of the year out of the moment in the same year? That's my point here is like Troy Brown didn't leave the Patriots and go become, the best wide receiver in the league.
The one guy, Marco, I'll give you one. How about Chandler Jones? How about Chandler Jones when he left the Patriots?
Or Joe Tooney signed a huge deal with the Chiefs, and he won a couple Super Bowls. Fine, okay, but we might be splitting hairs, guys. But
Marco, I think to your point, those teams, when you're up against the cap and you're contending, sometimes you have to make some tougher decisions. You would not like to make those tougher decisions while you're trying to rebuild. And, we don't have to relitigate every one of those guys and why they're not here. We've been through it a million times, and there are good reasons for all of the 4 guys you mentioned. What's your other points or questions?
So my other points are, like, we're going to have a very high pick. And
yes.
And it's a complicated year with quarterback.
Yes.
But I'm saying, like, a quarterback, I forgot which account on X last night was, like, posting all the holes that the Giants have. And then someone else, like, commented on it saying, like, well, a good quarterback could actually help with many of those. So, but it might not be the year. But here's my question. I'm looking forward to, guys, a deep dive on this offensive line because I thought we did fix the line. Even though the quarterback situation was hard for us this year at different times, I thought it was fixed. And now I'm like, do we have an issue at center? Is our left tackle, who's all world, he can't stay healthy, and it's crushing us. We lose Andrew Thomas. It has spiraled our years, and it's actually masked whether we've had a true quarterback issue or not. And now we know, like, we probably have a quarterback. Well, we do. And now we've also lost Andrew Thomas again. And Neal is Neal and Izudu. Like, that's something Shane and someone much smarter than me, they're going to have to, with a fine-tooth comb, they're going to have to figure out. I guess it wasn't much of a question. It was more of a statement.
No, Marco. I think it's interesting, right? And hang with us here. But I think you're right about Andrew Thomas and the injuries. It's a concern. What is it, 16 total games the last 2 years now, this year and last year, something like that?
It now has to become an issue.
But I think you have to go with him for one more year and see how it goes. And if you have another year like this, then you can have a conversation about how you want to handle that. But I think one more year, there's too many other places where you got to fill here, where you got to at least believe Andrew Thomas is your guy next year. Center, Schmitz, I don't think has made as much progress as we would have liked. But again, I don't think, given the other holes, that's a change you can make for next year. I would be just fine bringing Greg Van Roten back, based on the fact he's a local guy. This is where he settled with his family. I'm sure this is a place that he'd love to be back at a reasonable price. Whether he's starting for you or he's your, do everything backup guard center, which I think would be another potential role for him. But look, you're always having to build the offensive line. Jermaine Illuminor is not old. He's 29. He's going to be 30. He's got another 3 or 4 good years in him if you want to keep him. You could play good offensive line until 33, 34.
Sure.
Now, is he an all-pro? No. And even though, to quote you, the Giants, you thought they, quote-unquote, fixed their offensive line, I think they fixed it to the point where it's not hindering their ability to run their offense, but it's still not where the Eagles are. It's still not, even when Christian Darrisaw is healthy, where the Vikings are. It's not where the Steelers are. It's not where the Bills are. You know, go down the list of the best offensive lines. Like, you still have a serious disadvantage when you line up against those teams. So I think you're always working on the offensive line. I don't think you ever stop. Look at how the Eagles and Cowboys continually draft offensive linemen, even when they have guys in place. That's what you have to do. So you keep working at that problem every year. You keep adding pieces. And I just think that's a continuing process as you build here, always trying to reinforce that group. Because to your point, that impacts everything. That impacts your quarterback, which impacts your receivers, which impacts your running back. Go down the line. You're always trying to work on that offensive line and make it better.
Marco, you know the magic word, right? It starts with F, functional. You know the magic word for offensive lines. You got to be functional. This is only the second time in the last 10 years that the Giants have had a functional offensive line. Honestly. You know, in 22 they did. Well, 16 they kind of did too. So 3 years. And you know, this year, unfortunately, the record is not matching the functionality of the offensive line because a lot of other things have gone wrong.
And they had a couple games this year where they weren't functional up there too. Once Andrew Thomas went out there were a couple really rough games.
For the whole, it's been a functional line.
I agree with that.
And I will say this. Got to throw Evan Neal's name back out there because he is slowly rebuilding his ability to be a starting lineman again.
I'm not going to be willing to hand him a starting job.
I need to see.
I said slowly rebuilding. Yeah, no, He's on track to get himself back into that mix. He's on track. He may not be there yet.
You can't count on him.
I didn't say yet. But he's pointing in that direction. He's a heck of a lot better. In 3 of the 4 games he's played this year, he's a heck of a lot better than what we've seen the last 2 years.
Well, here's my last point. I just think with the trenches, they're going to have a decision to make at the top of the draft that, you know, people automatically point to quarterback, but I don't necessarily think in a year where it's not a guarantee for the quarterback, it never is, but especially this year, that we could totally look away from those positions. Hey, I'm going to jump off, and I just want to ask this.
Yeah.
You guys gave me I listened to the post game last night with Casillas and then Paul, you were on too with John during this point. You talked about with the question that some of the guys were asking, the media were asking about the whole plane situation, and I was thinking what you were thinking. It was frustrating, but also I didn't realize, maybe naive to it. I never realized that maybe editors kind of push certain initiatives. Makes sense, obviously. But my thing on that is there's the same 1 or 2 guys that I've been listening to for years that ask the same questions about those types of things. And I'm wondering, like, these other guys have editors too. Why aren't they asking those questions?
Well, different newspapers. But no, Marco, fair question. And Paul, again, he's in the newspaper business more so than I am, so he would have a better answer than me. But just look at how different papers cover different topics. I mean, from news to sports. The way the New York Post writes about sports compared to how Newsday writes about sports compared to how the New York Daily News writes about sports. Every paper has a different approach. Some people are going for more shock values. Some people are going for more, newsy stuff. It all depends on the paper and their approach to things. And the editorial styles of different papers can be very, very different, which will impact what kind of stories the editors are trying to get.
In short, it's all about the specific tone that paper wants to set for the overall general climate of how they want to approach a story. That's the best way to describe it.
I think that's the best way to do it. Now, I didn't know. I haven't looked at this number in a while, so I looked up PFF's pressure rate allowed numbers, and the Giants had been down around like 22, 23 for most of the year, which again is a big improvement. They've dipped all the way to 30th. Third worst in the league right now. Pressure
because of the last 3 weeks?
I would imagine, yeah. I mean, I haven't looked at where they've been, but the only teams worse are the Patriots. Wait a second. Is this offense? That can't be right. Wow, that must be Jalen Hurts holding the ball. They have the Eagles. Pressure rate allowed.
Wow.
That's got to be Jalen Hurts holding the ball. It's got to be.
Without a doubt, because we know those guys can play.
Yeah, and we've seen how they run block this year.
Oh, boy, do they run block.
Yeah, and so that I imagine that has to be that. The Steelers, which is Steelers are down there, not surprising. Russell and Fields both hold the ball and run around, so they bring a lot of that pressure on themselves. Will Levis holds the ball, runs around, brings a lot of pressure on himself. He's low on the group. The Seahawks have had a struggle on the offensive line this year, that's for sure. And then again, the Vikings, since Christian Darrisaw has went out, that's really hurt their offensive line.
Is the chart or the number, is that about seconds till there's pressure in the pocket, or is that about seconds that the guy held the ball to complete the pass play?
No, this has nothing to do with time. It's just a matter of what plays the quarterbacks were pressured on.
Okay.
It's not time related. I can actually probably find that.
When you have a quarterback who will run around some, and believe it or not, DeVito and Locke have actually done some running around.
Well, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons the Giants' pressure rate has gone up.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Holding the ball more, correct.
I mean, it's kind of a roundabout way to get to it, but I think that has something to do with the number.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find average time to pressure.
And by the way, that is one other positive that I've learned about Drew Lock that I really did not realize. When he came out of Missouri, I thought he was just a standard pocket passer who did not have a lot of escapability about him.
Yeah.
But he's shown escapability for the Giants this year. And he's got a big frame. He's not afraid to take off.
All right, let's go to Len in Columbia, Maryland. And guys, I know we're taking calls a little bit longer. I just think at this time of year, it's more instructive to have some deeper conversations depending on the topic sometimes. So we'll probably start elongating some calls now as we have some deeper conversations. Obviously, stuff about the game, you have an opinion, you want to get on, get off, that's fine. That's cool. But like Marco had some good, deeper thoughts and questions there, so I think it requires a longer back and forth. Let's go to Len in Columbia, Maryland. Len, what's going on?
Man, deeper thoughts and questions. That's really...
Deep thoughts with Len in Columbia,
Len, are we
Maryland.
giving you too much credit?
Hey, good to talk to you guys. Well, what are you going to do? 4 games to go. Boy. Disappointing. Coach used that word about 6 times in his presser. It was just disappointing. I mean, John alluded to it. Look at that. Look at that field position in the first half. Oh, my goodness.
You got to get more than 3 points. You have to.
No doubt.
God. Geez, I thought that field position, you look back on it and you say to yourself, by the time, and the way we played in the second half, you say to yourself, geez, we should have had 30 points in this game. How do you, with that field position, how do you not score touchdowns? And I'm not going to knock the guy. We just got to get a quarterback. I mean, we got to get a quarterback more than anything else. You want to talk about the coaching? You want to talk about the general manager? You want to talk about the offensive line, linebacker? Geez, we got to get a quarterback. Oh my goodness!
You know what's frustrating about that, though, Lan? You see, and I'm not saying that either Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock should be competing for a starting job next year. Please don't misinterpret what I'm about to describe.
Yeah.
But there have been times, and this went for Daniel certainly during the first half of the season, where, I've got the Giants now for 35 drop passes. Okay?
Yeah.
35. Now, depending upon whose service you want to go to, that's going to be top 3 on anybody's list in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the problem. And I'll go further. Of the 35 drop passes that I have logged, okay, 13 of them have been on 3rd down, 2 of them on 4th down, and 14 of the 35 were first down throws beyond the sticks. That's terrible.
And look, and the other thing I'll throw out there, Len, I always harp on this, and I'll be really fast. You just got to get more explosive plays. Until you get more explosive plays, you're not going to score more points. That's just the way it goes.
Well, hey, a couple of 20-plus yard passes to neighbors. All of a sudden in the second half, it was like last week with Theo Johnson. In the second half, we're throwing him passes. He's running over people.
Isn't it amazing how much easier it looks, Len, when you get their best players the ball down the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, quick question. Well, no, let me go back to quarterback for a second.
Yeah.
I thought I'd find this in Eisen's column this morning, on the website. How many? There were like 6 tip balls.
There were a lot of batted passes in that game. I'm not quite sure why, Len, but there were a lot of batted passes. I think there were 5 or 6, yeah.
We haven't had 6 all year.
It seems that way sometimes.
There was 6. I thought maybe nobody keeps track of that. There's no, number that Eisen could have looked at. But I thought to myself, geez, 6 of them. Come on, that's just I know about the drops, Paul. Paul, on the drops, did you have Hyatt as one of your 4 drops on that
Yes,
pass?
I did.
That should have been a better throw too.
I still catchable.
That should have been a better throw.
I'm not saying it shouldn't have
Probably
been. I'm saying it was catchable.
All right.
No, I think we're
to
both
me,
right.
And that's
there
fair.
You go.
Yeah.
You can both be right.
Yeah, you can.
I was gonna say you're
that's the
both right,
beauty.
but,
That's the beauty of
you know,
that stat. You can both be right.
I know it's I know it's early in his career. Here's my feeling on Hyatt this morning, and maybe I'm just frustrated from yesterday. And I think both of you were right on that point. He's never going to catch that pass. He's never going to catch a pass like that. He's just not going to do it. I've lost confidence in that. It's going to have to be so accurate. He's not going to bail out the quarterback. 23 catches last year. He's fallen off the charts this year. Let me say something about John Michael.
Yeah.
I said this to you before the season started, John. I don't know if Paul was on. If that doesn't work out, it's catastrophic. Such a setback if that doesn't work out. I think he does better against he was okay yesterday. I think he does better against 4-3 defenses. Oh my God!
No, Len, he does because he doesn't have that gigantic nose tackle lined up over him. I think you're right about that.
He's undersized, Len, which means the monster defensive tackle, the monster nose tackle.
And Len, I don't know if you listened to it. Sean Harris and I talked about this on the Giants Huddle last week specifically about him going against bigger guys. If you haven't listened to that, you should go back and listen to it.
That's just the nature of the beast. There's good. Sean O'Hara could tell you that because he was an undersized center.
Oh, that's exactly how I framed
and
the
so
question
was
to
Bart
him.
Oates. Bart Oates was the same way. Undersized centers, you can still win with them, but there's going to be times you're going to have to give them help.
Yep. They get pushed back into the quarterback. That happened to Sean for sure. But gee, Sunday, Pierce, Baltimore. He weighs like 360 pounds.
I know.
Len, this is all around. This is a very difficult matchup for the Giants.
Yeah.
You may have answered the question. I got to go back and look at it again. I haven't had the guts to go back and look at the game again.
Yeah, what's your question?
I lost my thoughts. The run defense.
Yes.
The run defense. Surprising. First play of the game, Kamara got stuffed.
No, the run defense is actually pretty good, believe it or not.
Wow, yeah. Now, we don't have Dexter in there. Maybe. Well, you probably did answer the question. Where were we stacking the box there and 4 down linemen?
Yep. No, and in fact, you had 5 across a lot early in that game to stop Kamara. So they were in the base defense and you're able to do that, Len, because the Saints play so many 2 tight end sets. So you're able to get into your base defense. They were dropping Newman or Pinnock down into the box, and they were exactly what they should have been doing, trying to take away the run, because the Saints don't have those wide receivers that are going to scare you down the field.
The schematics of the matchup lent itself to give the Giants a better chance to stop the run, especially without the Saints having their top 3 targets in the receiving game.
Unfortunately, it meant they had to have more defensive linemen on the field, which you were very short on, but the guys actually did do a pretty decent job.
Yes, because Andrew just tweeted us, John, about that same question. But to the Giants' credit, just because schematically this matchup was something that they could plan for and they could plan against, and they knew what the Saints' shortcomings were, doesn't mean that the Giants would execute it correctly, but they did. And that's to their credit, especially the guys who came deep out of the depth chart.
Yeah, oh, for sure. The kid they picked up from, was it the Rams or the 49ers, Durden?
Yeah, Durden.
He's played before. He's a big man. Mm-hmm. Stick some of those big bodies out there. Run 4 guys again along the defensive line on Sunday. Before the game started, during the game, right up to I never thought we were going to lose that game. I was confident. I thought we were going to beat the Saints. I just thought.
Yet the Giants continue to find the way.
I just thought it was time, and we were going to win the game. I'll end up where I started. Just downright disappointing. It's just so disappointing.
No, it is.
As a fan, I can't. I don't know.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Len.
guys. Hey, go
Appreciate the
Giants.
call.
Be good.
Good stuff. And guys, I'll make sure SciTech and I take a bunch of your calls tomorrow. I only got to Marco and Len today. Two things that we've talked about I want to discuss with you as I've been able to follow up as we've gotten some of the calls. So watch Kubas. This is the tackle penalty.
Yes.
This is the angle that I thought was very telling, that he got pulled down. He's right there. You see him?
Mm-hmm.
So watch. He's on top of him. Watch the arm. Did you see the arm in the pole?
Yeah. Yep.
So the guy puts his arm across the back of Kubas and grabs his shoulder pad. Like, Kubas is like falling. He's trying not to fall. He gets pulled down.
See, now, that's from the shot behind the Giants' end zone.
Yes.
If you look at the side
And I believe
view,
that's where the flag came from, too, by the way.
if you look at the side view, it's not as clear that
No.
the Saint guy got
It's
a tug
not.
on
But
him.
on that view, you can
On
see
that
it.
view, it is.
Pulls him down. Now, I looked
But
up.
I could understand how somebody might have misinterpreted that.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's why I didn't really scream as much about
Yes.
that one.
All right, so I got some additional numbers for you on the times of the pressures, okay?
Yeah.
So average time to pressure. This is how long it takes for the defense to get a pressure on a particular play, okay?
Not how long the ball's held.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, right? If the ball's out, you can't get a pressure.
Right. But what I'm saying is if it takes him if it takes the defense 2.3 seconds to get to the pocket, right? But the quarterback holds it and then scrambles out and it takes 4.7 seconds for him to get rid of it, what number are they using for this calculation?
When the pressure takes place, when
Okay.
the defensive lineman impacts
So the
the quarterback.
2.3 would be the one.
Well, yeah, I mean,
in that case.
I could also give you average time to throw.
All
I
right,
got
go
both
ahead.
those
Go
numbers. So average time to pressure, working backwards, the Giants are 22nd. So there are 10 teams with a faster average time to pressure than the Giants, which is kind of where they were most of the year.
Off their offensive line.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, average time to throw. So this is, these two numbers are not going to be, they're going to be very closely related, right? Mm-hmm. Because the longer you hold it, it's going to take longer for the,
Yes.
the average pressure will be longer. So average time to throw, remember, Daniel got rid of the ball pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So the Giants are 20th in average time to throw. So those are very similar, right? Average time to throw, they have the Giants at, where's the number? Sorry about that. I'm right-clicking instead of left-clicking. There we go. So average time to throw, the Giants are at 3.077 seconds. So 3.07 seconds average time to throw. Average time to pressure, 2.48 seconds. Okay? They also track quick pressures. Quick pressures are pressures that happen in under 2.5 seconds. Mm-hmm. I don't have a rate for this. I just have raw numbers.
Right.
So it's not as good. But the Giants have given up the fourth most quick pressures in the league. 148.
Well,
so
that's rather
pressures
interesting.
under 2.5 seconds. But again, I think they've probably thrown more passes than most teams. They've had 578 pass attempts. They have the fourth most passing attempts in the league. So I don't have the rate on that one necessarily. The other number I'll give you too, which I think is interesting when I was going through this, quarterback knockdown percentage, knockdown rate. So the Giants had the fourth highest quarterback knockdown rate, so plays in which a quarterback was knocked down. So just some
And
numbers
again, a lot
for you
of
to chew
dropbacks
on.
also contribute to that as well.
That is correct. Well, that is a percentage. So
Okay.
the rate is 18.5%, which is fourth most. So, and we talk about the Eagles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eagles have the third longest average time to throw in the league, 3.6 seconds.
That doesn't
Because
surprise you.
Jalen Hurts holds the football.
Exactly.
Therefore, average time to pressure for the Philadelphia Eagles, 2.6 seconds, which is way down the list. It is the sixth best average time to pressure.
See, so for the most part, if we look at the two most important numbers that you just recited there, it seems as though the Giants are basically right at the border of the bottom second third, if you break the NFL into tiers.
Or the top of the final third.
right
one
at
or
the
other.
border.
Correct.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, you're around like 22nd.
Which, folks, I hate to say it, but that is quite a step up from where they've been.
It is progress.
No, seriously. And I'm
Though
not
now,
trying to be
if
funny.
all these guys are hurt now the rest of the year, that might get skewed. So
it's
we'll
going to
see.
skew it. It's going to skew it.
Right.
But, in 1 year from last year, which they were historically bad,
Yep.
to actually get up until, the get out of or virtually out of the lower third percentile, that's a pretty big jump. So, there's got to be some credit given to what Carmen Bracillo's been able to do with some of these guys. But do you want them to be better? Yes, you do. The question becomes now, resources-wise, as you go into this offseason, how much more can you address the line when you have other problems to fix?
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Where do you prioritize? Because you can have resources now between picking high in the draft and having a bunch of salary cap space.
And what if you trade that pick? You might even have more resources.
Very true.
So, a lot of ways to go here. A lot of ways to go, John.
And we'll have a lot of off-season shows to
We
talk
will.
about it. So,
Indeed, folks.
We're already planning our Shrine Game and Senior Bowl trips. I'm trying to convince Pearson to come out so we could do more video content out there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to convince him to do it, but I'm trying. I'm working on it. And then, of course, Paul and I will be at the Combine, of course, like we always are. At least I think I haven't talked to him about it, but I don't see why we're not.
Okay.
And that's it, Paul. Good stuff, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you, John.
We'll see you on Friday.
You got it.
All right, I'll be back with SciTac tomorrow. And again, I promise you we'll take more of your calls. I know we only got the 2 today, but I thought there were good calls and there was a good conversation with them. So we hung with them a little bit, and we'll take more of your calls tomorrow right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. For Paulie Dottino, I am John Schmelk. Thank you to Pearson Butler. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30.